Hi, welcome to Interactive Artist Magazine. My name is Mark Palumchak. I'm here to do a short demonstration for you, a video that they're going to put online, and I hope you enjoy it. It's called Apple Fantasy. What I'm going to do is take a still life, just two little apples, and I'm going to try to create a background in here that is explosive to show you how you can make things work in the background for just two simple little apples, something that's real calm and real familiar with people. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a quick little drawing of these two apples. If you sketch down here and take a look at my palette here, I would like to go over a couple things before I begin. This is my paint palette here. I'm using Martin F. Weber paints and the watercolors. Today I'm going to be using turquoise blue, which is this pretty color right here. And with that turquoise, I'm going to use several colors. We're going to use turquoise. I'm going to be using the violet. Beautiful colors together. I'm going to use a color called Spring Green. Real pretty color right there. Also just a touch of burnt sienna, not much here, burnt sienna. I'll be using indigo, a real deep color, a lot of that. I'll use Brilliant Cranberry, which is also a pretty color here, so you can see the pretty colors that are going to go in this painting, and some alizarin crimson. So the apples I'm going to paint, I'm going to do two different ones. The one's going to be green, one's going to be red. Okay. And so let me do a quick little sketch now. The brushes that I'm going to be using, the first one that I'm using here is a number 12 combo brush by Royal Langnickel. I'll just do a little sketch of an apple. Not getting really perfect with the apple. I'm not real concerned about that. Like I said, this is more like showing you different technique, explosion on the paint, different colors. So I just start out with a little sketch like this. I try to keep everything nice and loose. First thing I'm going to do is put underneath color down. So I'm going to go to my turquoise blue. A lot of water here on a scale of 1 to 4, 4 holding a lot of water and 1 being very dry. I am at about a 3.5. I'm going to just drop in a little bit of this blue color, pretty blue turquoise, and start to lay in some of the shadowing on the apples and also put in some of the background here. So this is just get real soft with the blue. Come down here. Start to get crazy on the background. I like all the splash and gas here. A lot of times I will take the paint and just take it with my brush and flip it out like that, just to get the background going. I'll do that too when I come into my red paint. I'm going to take some of that cranberry. I'm going to throw some of that, just a touch of that color into these apples. Kind of makes a purple, and I'm going to put some reflection down here onto the table. You won't even notice it's like a table here. Very abstract, as you can see. A lot of fun to paint when you paint like this. We're working at this convention, and I'm trying to get these people to loosen up a little bit. A lot of this kind of jazz, loosen it up a little bit, real free movement, and which I think is very exciting. You know, instead of just doing the same old painting every little apple with a lot of little strokes like that there, this is more explosion, and that's the wonderful thing about watercolor. Let the water do all the work. Let me throw a little bit of that red paint across there, across the apples. There we go. Well, it doesn't look like much yet, but when we're done, it'll look pretty good. As this thing, I'm going to use a hair dryer today so we can kind of rush this through a little bit quicker. So, excuse me while this is on. Throw my finger across there and move the paint. All right, so I might have to do that periodically during this painting. Let me get a little color into the apples now themselves. So I'm going to take the spring grain. That color. As you can see on my palette, I have spring green mixed with hunter's green and everything else in there. A pretty sloppy palette, but that's the way I like it. So I'm going to put the green, and you can see right in here, you can see the reds and blues come through that apple if you look close enough. That's what I'm intending to do. I like that underneath color to make it look real rather than looking real flat. So I pull that green there. I'm going to put some green reflection into the base down in here like this, sideways because it's on a horizontal. We want it to pretend like it's sitting on a table of some sort. Throw a little green into this apple here, even though that's going to be the red one. Green in the background. A little pizzazz in here like that. A lot of explosion going on there. So it's neat looking at it just like that, I think anyway. All right, so I'm going to put some water over here, bring that green paint over here. Now I'm looking for texture in the apple, so I'm going to take the palm of my hand, I'm going to squeeze it down in there, and I'm going to leave it alone. I'm not going to go crunch it a bunch of times. I'm going to live with that mark. So I'm going to just leave that be. A lot of times what you'll tend to do is you want to come back into it and you want to move the paint too much around. Well, pretty soon you just defeated the purpose of the marks in there. So we want to leave that mark. Wash my brush out. I'm going to come over here to the Alizarin Crimson. That's a bright red color. Put just a touch of cranberry in that. And I'm going to come and paint the red apple. And that's a real bright color, as you can see. And I'm going to put a little reflection down here on the base. So we can see a little bit of that later on there with a little water so it's not so strong. I'm going to take my water here with a touch of that color, lay it down right here for the side of the apple. This apple is laying on its side. And take my palm of my hand again, crunch it once more like that, and leave it alone. Hand should look like that, all right? All right, I'm going to dry this off a little bit here, and then I'm going to start adding some of the background to it. Before I do that, let me go ahead and put this one apple up here. We have a little leaf in it, so let's make that leaf. Let's not go green with it. Let's make it on the yellow side, maybe a yellow leaf like it fell right off the tree. Give this one a stem there for yellow. And then with that yellow, throw a little yellow down here, maybe one over in here. So very abstract. As you can see, it looks good. I'm liking that. All right, let's dry it off a little bit. The unfortunate thing about this when you're doing a video real quick like that is you have to dry it, okay? I will have you know that the materials that I'm working on, the board itself there is made by the Crescent Company in Wheeling, Illinois. It is an illustration board that I have embossed. The top half of it at the front page is rag, and then there's pulp in between and the backing. They compress it. That's why I have tape across. It's bordered in tape. I don't like the water to seep in between the boards because that'll peel off. So, and plus it'll give me a nice white border when I'm done with it, and I'll show you that. When we come in here, I also use a couple different sponges. This is a nylon sponge. A lot of you go and use that real fancy sea sponge. I use a nylon sponge, all right? And then this one here is a kitchen sponge, and this is what I'm going to blend my artwork with. This one here I'm going to take out highlights. So I'll come in here like this, squeeze that sponge out really good, get it filled with water, but squeeze it out really good so it doesn't get all over the place. And I'm going to take out my highlight right here. I'm just going to rub on the corner on this side. I'm going to have my foundation light coming from this direction. So I need the highlight on this side. I'm going to take the top of this one here, since the light's coming up here, and I'm going to rub down right there and create a nice little highlight at the top. Let's take a rag here, tap that in. And so I have my highlights for my apples going on in there. Now the idea is to create a real deep dark background, real splash and gash here. I'm going to put some colors up on the top. I'm going to throw the paint around, throw the water around, and show you what we can do to create real action in the back of a real easy still life. So I'm taking a large brush. This is my wash brush. It's made out of squirrel. Also a royal brush, Langnickel. I'm going to start with the turquoise color. Let's go turquoise and a little bit of this spring green here. Let's go up into the corner with this. Lots of paint, lots of water. Boldly put that down, big stripes like that. Maybe swirl it some. And up on the top here, I'm going to use some Saran wrap so I can get a real neat action line movement on the top of this painting. So let's go ahead and put that up in there. I'm going to take Glad cling wrap. All right, any kind of Saran wrap would work. You need to pull up like that to make that work. And up in here like that, just lay it in to make a mark. Again, a lot of people are going to come in there and they're going to press it all out, make it real clean, and it defeats the purpose. Just like my handprint there, you want to leave those marks in there because it looks like you did a lot of work when actually all you did was put your hand in it. I'm going to let that dry up there on the top, and I'll come around these apples and start to get real dark. I'm going to come into my number 12 again. Let me clean this palette up a little bit so everybody can see what I'm doing. Nice thing about watercolor, it's kind of easy to clean up on the sponge. Excuse my fingers for looking like they look, but I just got off of doing another demonstration and they're all dirty. All right, number 12, combination brush, squirrel and nylon. I'm going to come into my indigo, the real deep color. It's a real dark blue there. I'm going to take some of that indigo and maybe just a little bit of cranberry in there just to cut it a little bit so it's not so blue. Grab all of that paint on a scale of 1 to 4. This is more like a 2. It's got heaviness to it. It's thick. And I'm going to get real dark there and bring out that apple. So that's real dark, heavy paint. I don't like to leave a real rounded mark when I'm doing the shapes of the apples or anything else when I'm painting. So I'm going to take this one, I'm going to come in and cut into that apple a little bit. I'm looking for that highlight right there. And then I'm going to take this paint and swirl it a little bit because that's going to be easier for me to blend later on. Instead of having it a round mark, which makes it a tight line, this is a softer line, easier to blend together. Again, I'll take this mark, coming in here like this, cut into that apple. I'll go right around that little stem. Try to keep your strokes nice and bold if you can. Down there like that. Everybody likes a little purple, so I'm going to throw some purple on the base here. Purple that up. And come back to the top up in here with a little bit more of the indigo mix. And let's get this apple looking pretty good. Right around there like that, real nice stroke. And cut it in there like that. So that kind of looks, yeah, you can see 2 apples there. If you take the right kind of medication, you can see that really easy. Right across here on the top. Again, swirling it like that. See, what we're doing is the negative, so we're bringing out the apples. I don't know if you guys get a kind of vision of that, but you'll see it pretty soon when I go into putting the background in. Again, I don't want to see that straight line there. I'm going to come underneath, cut that apple on the table. I'm going to leave some of my marks down here that have the colors in them and just get a form there for the base of it. I'm looking for all negatives. I'm going to come with water here and clean this up pretty soon. Down here on the top, bottom. Take this off there. You see the mark that creates from the saran wrap. And I'm going to mix those 2 together. So I'm going to come back in here with some of my green turquoise. The same color I used up on the top there. A little bit swirl there. Real dark across the side. And you can see me fan that brush out real wide like that. I fan the brush when I make my stroke. I also bend the brush and release the paint. So if you don't do that, you're not releasing the paint. You're going like this. You're going like I release the paint. So you see a big water drip there. Block that in, block this in. All right, now I need to climb it up to the top. Let's go with the real dark purple. It's fun. This painting is always fun to paint because every time you paint it, it turns out differently. Obviously, because you're just kind of throwing paint up. So all the negatives are in there. Purple's all in. Now what I have to do is dry it up. I'm going to take a toothbrush that I use a lot. Any old toothbrush will do. The bristles, if they're harder, they seem to work better than soft. I'm going to get a lot of water right there like this. And I'm going to splatter this thing. I would like to get a lot of splatter marks, especially across the apples like that. Just throw that splatter across the apples. And sometimes I'll take that toothbrush like this and just wing it across there so I get a neat mark going across those apples like that. Okay? So it's a lot of action again. You can throw a lot of action into that paint. I'm going to blend it around. All right. Now I need to dry. Let's go back to drying this out. As this thing's drying, sometimes I like to melt the painting down, which I like to call melting. And I'll take my fingers here and I just throw them in the water like this. Take water like this, and I'm just going to whip this across the board as hard as I can. You'll see on the top that it hits that, the water activates. When it hits the board like that, it pushes the paint out, okay? When it pushes the paint out like that, it's going to create what I call a melting look. If you look in that corner, as that dries down, it's going to look like it's just melting, okay? And I like that look a lot. I do that a lot. So there's a bunch of stuff that you can do. You can take the, while this is wet, especially down here in the corner here, you want action coming into your painting. We can take this brush, which is a inch nylon brush. I use it for glazing. It also has a handle on the back that's got a shave part to it. That's for scratching out and doing fences and trees and whatnot. Sometimes you just use it to make marks. So I'll take this brush, put it in my hand here like this, and just come across and make big strokes there. We're looking for an exciting background, so that's kind of the look for it, okay? So it's very explosive, but the idea here is to take a simple project like apples, bananas, grapes, whatever, and create a background that's interesting to look at. So, hopefully we'll get through all of these materials. Let me keep drying this a little. You can see that melting coming up pretty nice there on the corner, so I'll try to leave that alone. All right, while that's drying down a little bit more, I'm going to take my number 12 and I'm going to do a little lifting. That's taking the water off the brush, putting it on your subject and lifting your highlights out there. I did it with the sponge a little bit ago. Now this is the water that's on my brush. Still has some paint in it. Try to get that as clean as possible. There we go, that's a little better. And I'll start to carve this out a little cleaner. So I'm going to take this guy, let that paint bleed in some. This would be more like the, now you want to take your painting and be more conservative, more traditional, so you're really actually kind of painting the apple a little bit better. You see a lot of brush work. You see my brush moving a lot instead of my arm now because I'm lifting the paint off there and getting real close on the corner, softening up the corner of that apple. I'm going to come up on top here and I'm going to take that yellow leaf that I had and I'm going to actually bring some of that paint in from the background right in here like that to get that inside portion of the apple where it dips down. I'll lift that little corner up just a shade like that. You can see where that lip is. I'm going to come underneath here and try to clean this up just a shade. I'm just going to bring this in a little bit like that so you can see the definition of this apple. And also an apple is just like a round sphere, so when it's going to have a highlight on both sides. So we're going to come over here on this side here. I'm going to get a highlight coming in. Highlight coming in down in here. Must be time for me to quit. The alarm went off. All right, so I'm going to highlight this apple right across in here like that. Squeeze my brush out. When I'm doing this, I'm taking the water and then I'm squeezing the brush off to pull the paint back out. So I'm going to come inside and get that little dip into the apple there. The apple has a real characteristic like that, so come pull that off. In this area in here, I'm going to bring the background into the apple. I don't want to see both apples real stiff next to each other, so I'm going to take this and just kind of start to bleed this down for shadow. So it looks real like you're just going to see the highlight of that apple and the highlight there. Trying not to mess too much up with that beautiful mark that I made with my hand that nobody else can do because it's my hand. Soften up the base. So as you can see, the apple is it's there. You can recognize it as apples, but it's not jumping at you. The wonderful flashy stuff that goes across the apples. You know, apples have all kinds of nicks and marks in them. They're not perfect, but I think they're more perfect when they look like that, when they have all those little flaws to them. All right, soften up the stem there. You get the idea for the apples. Now, on this part of it. So I've trimmed that out like I want it to be and put some highlights in there. Now I'm going to take a kitchen sponge that you see here. I'm going to wet that, squeeze that down, and I want this sponge to have some dampness to it. So I'll take the water, squeeze it out, kind of give it a good jolt. The more the water that is in this sponge, the easier it is to move the paint around. The less water that's in here, you have to put a little bit more effort into pushing the paint around. It's kind of, I always like to refer to it like a block of sandpaper and a baby's rear end. So depending on how well you like the baby, you don't want to put too much pressure down. You want to start it out easy like this. You lay it flat. You want to use the meat part here of the sponge. You're going to lay this flat and then you start to move it. And when you start to see the paint go, then you know how much pressure to put down. So what I'm going to do is what I call marbleizing this part of the painting. I'm going to take this and blend some of the hard lines out. I'm going to leave some of my saran wrap marks in there. I'll leave a little bit because that shows action. I'm going to leave my melting down over here on the corner. I'm going to come back and forth right here like this, real gentle. Move some of that beautiful purple over there that everybody seems to like so much. And I'll do the same down in here. While I'm doing this, I'm thinking to myself, try not to blend the whole painting down. Again, the tendency is when people start to see it move like that and they really like that mark, you know, the tendency is to do too much. You want to blend everything. Again, if you blend everything, it's going to be boring. You're going to leave some of the marks, leave some of that action. Leave that, leave this, leave this. I'm going to come down here and do this on the bottom, and I'm going to try to leave a little bit of that color underneath. So I'm squeezing the sponge out again. And I'm going to start to bring this straight down like a reflection. Reflection goes straight. This is interesting here how I cut the bottom of the apple so it falls into the background. And just pull this paint straight up and down. And if I want to get a cleaner edge to it, I flip it over. You can see how much paint is coming off on that sponge. On this side, soften down so it looks like I have some reflection dripping straight down. Get rid of that hard edge and this base here. Okay, so now we have a pretty nice background, real exciting. It looks like the lights are coming through, exactly what I wanted. Sometimes they just turn out like that. All right. We're still not done with the pizzazz to it. So what I want to do is get action into this painting. Sometimes I'll take my fingers like this and just flick up like that. Flick in there, put water spots on there. You want to take a nice clean towel, like I've got, dry anyway. And I need to force this water spot back into the painting. Tapping it straight back up and down like this. Flipping it over on this clean side, I'm going to go against the grain and bring out some spots like that. And that's creating texture in your painting, so it's something exciting to look at. Now, my name's Mark. It begins with an M. Check this mark out. I'm going to come across here and get more busyness going on here, so I'm just going to take my brush and M it all the way across the board with water. Like that. I'll do another one down here because that was perfect. I can't even make a mistake on that. That's just so good. I'm going to take a clean towel again. I'm going to press that water back into the board. Wonderful sound effects too. Can you hear that? So you can feel how hard I'm pressing this down. Watch those M's come out of here. I'm going to flip it over. That's how much paint I took off. I'm flipping over on the clean side like this against the grain. All right, you see all that jazz that's going on in there? Now this painting's got some life to it. So the next step is to come in and highlight it. And at the end, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some of this liquid gold and I'm going to take a little bit of this metallic gold. All right, this is a powdered paint. This is a liquid paint. And we're going to throw some pizzazz into this painting. Because these guys all seem to think it's very boring. So I'm going to jazz it up. I'm going to use some of this paint here. This is a white gouache. You can use Weber makes a brand of this opaque white that works well. I've used this permanent white for a long time, so I'm comfortable with it. I'm going to put these little highlights down here and start to actually paint the apple. Excuse me. The highlights you want to just touch with your finger like this, smear a little bit. For those of you that are starting watercolors, try not to get in the habit that you might have had in the past where you take that line there and then you rub it, rub it, rub it, rub it. And you rub it, and you keep rubbing it, and then you do the same thing. You take this mark, this beautiful mark, and you turn it into a blah stuff because you just wiped it all away. So you just want to maybe take one edge to it, soften down, and be done with it. So we're highlighting that apple. I'm going to highlight this part of it, maybe a little bit on the stem, like that. All right, maybe one more here because I wiped that out so much. And you can see my finger, just touch, 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 and go. Same thing up on top here. The nice thing about this here, this apple, is you can't really even see where the apple starts and begins because the background floats into it. But that is, to me, beautiful. So we put the highlight down just like so. Come in here, down to the top. Put that little stem in. While I'm at it, everything's going to have a little reflection here, so I'm going to come down where those whites are, fan out this brush. This is my number 6 script liner, usually used for my trees and whatnot, but I do use it to do my detailed. I'm going to put some of the highlight down like that inside so it reflects straight down. A little reflection right over here just like this, and across, because it's a horizontal. Straight down, don't play with it too much. Even I do it, see? All right, we'll come in here and take some of this white, some of that pretty spring green, if I can get it. I need to get some more spring green. I like that color a lot. Whatever green we got there, that's the one we're working with. I'm gonna mix it with some white, so you can mix it with this white. Again, I'm gonna give me a little bit of those M's, touching them up there. Like that, maybe fall apart over in here with it. Touch it, touch it, touch it, touch it. So we got that real rhythm going in there. That's pretty nice. I like that. Every now and then you do something that you really like. You know, that was one of them right there. Just like that. We've got a little bit of that green reflection. That apple down. Touch it with your finger. Wipe it down. Pretty much a lot of action there. All right. Liquid gold. Check this out. Hope this works. I'm going to put a little bit of liquid gold on this. That's just taking the gold paint here and just, I don't know if you can see that mark or not. You can see that gold that's on there. Guess what you get to do? Finger paint. These two. Rub down and across, rub down and across. Don't take out the whole thing. We need to see this jazz in there like that. You need to see the marks and you need to see that gold speckle. Now I'm going to take powdered gold. This is a metallic. I'm going to apply this with my toothbrush. You probably can't see that in there. Maybe you might be able to get it here on the palette, but let's see if we can get this. Let me clean off this area here. And let me show you what this powdered stuff does. This is cool. It's like an iridescent. You know, it's an iridescent paint. So what you do is you take your toothbrush, you get it real wet. You notice that I have a real important water bucket here too. You see that? First class operation. You're going to take that real wet, just like this, get in there and get that powder on there. It coagulates on the brush. I don't know if you can see that or not. It's real kind of thick. You see that? It's kind of a thick paint. But as you apply water to that, start to apply water to it, and you're going to see it kind of start to come into a shimmer. I don't know if you can catch that or not, but this has got, it's got a sparkle to it. And what I'm going to do here, I'm just going to take this again. I'm take this toothbrush into my hand like this. The weight of that toothbrush is like this. And I'm going to take it just like a Frisbee and I'm going to flick it. It's going to go right in a centrifugal force is going to carry the paint all the way around me like this. So it's going to hopefully leave a really cool mark that you cannot paint with the brush. All right? Wish me luck. Just like that. You see that? Just like that. And I'm going to take it with my finger. I'm going to splatter, 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 splatter some gold across there. Hit a couple on here and soften up the apple at the base. And that is what we call a neat apple painting with a splashy background. Now, if you're working in this material, let me show you a little something. I'm done with this, but you can glaze over this, and say you wanted the apple to be just a shade greener than what we've got. I'll just come in. It's dry now, so I can come in with my green paint. I like it just the way it is, but sometimes I know a lot of you like to come back into it and putz around and play with them until you screw them all up. So let me show you how to do that. This is just taking the green paint. Now, if I wanted to get that apple greener, I would come back in with my green like that. Take my water. Again, wash that off to the side. And sometimes I would even come back in there, hit it with my hand once more. But if you want more color to it, you can add more color. It's everybody, whatever flavor you like to do. You know, everybody has different tastes. So a little reflection down there into the base of this. When you take a board like I'm working on, I wanted to show you the back of the board here too, because this is what it looks like. It's a crescent. It's a 300 medium weight illustration board. So it's thin, you see. You can hear it, I hope. And then when you're taking off any kind of tapes that you put on this, you want to always pull this tape to the outside. Don't pull in towards your painting so you won't rip the whole thing. After you did all that wonderful work on there, you don't want to rip it all up. Pull that straight out. In this direction here. And this will give you a little better image of the painting with a little white around it so it doesn't look so bad. There you go. You have a nice, cool, crazy looking apple painting. Isn't that neat? I love that. Well, I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you liked the online video and it works out well for you. We'll try it again next time. Thanks.